Hi everyone, thank you for joining me again. I'm Beth Krause with Grace Anatomy, Functional Health and Nutrition, and I welcome you back to our 4-week series on cancer awareness. This is Faith Over Fear, Knowing You're Normal, and this week we're going to have a conversation about learning to listen to your body, not with anxiety or fear, but with awareness and wisdom, and allowing you to have space with grace. Because knowing your body isn't about waiting for something to go wrong, but it's about recognizing how God designed our bodies to communicate. And when you learn the language of your body, you can make empowered and faith-filled decisions, and not decisions out of fear. And that's a lot of times the noise of the world causes us to be fearful. And I want to dismiss that for you today, or at least help you weed through all of that noise. So first of all, I want you to start here. Fear does not belong in your body. We were not created to be filled with fear. In fact, in Joshua 1:9, God is actually commanding us to not fear. It doesn't belong in our thought life, and it certainly does not belong in your health decisions. In Psalm 61:2, it says, "When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I." You see, your body is not your enemy. It is to be our ally. It's our temple, designed by the Most High, one that God intricately designed, that He knew before we were even knit together, and lovingly dwells within us. So when we understand that, we can begin to approach health through a stewardship, a communion, and not through panic and fear. Awareness becomes worship, and prevention becomes obedience. So when we talk about knowing you're normal, we're really talking about tuning in, learning how to listen without our ears. We listen to our energy levels. We listen by looking at our skin. We listen at how our digestion is moving. How is our cycle, not just for us as women and our cycles, our monthly cycles, but also how is our circadian rhythm cycle? How is our rest and digest cycle? How are our moods? All the little signals that tell us how our internal environment is doing, which is not listening with our ears. It's listening to our innate design. Now, this buzzword that we keep hearing, and especially during this month, is early detection, especially around breast cancer, right? And other cancers as well. And while screening is important, let's clarify what early detection really means. It's not just about scheduling a test a year, but it's living in a way that you are in relationship with your body. You notice changes sooner because you're actually paying attention to how your body functions, moves, digests, rests. And this is kind of what early detection can include as far as the testing world goes. But I want to show you a reminder. I don't carry it with me on my keychain because it's quite bulky, but I do keep it in visual in my office because I spend a lot of time here in my office preparing content. But this is a visual reminder that I keep. This is not the size of lumps, but I will let you see what early detection can mean for those of us that are of the female species. And let me restate that. I want to back up just a second. Men, if you're listening to me right now too, you also have breast tissue. So you too, and it's a extremely smaller percentage, but you too should be screening for breast cancer. It is extremely rare, but it still does happen. So you still should also check yourselves with self-checks. Now, in this chart here, the beads are representative of, this is not the size. The little circles on my card are the size of, this would be the size of the lump if you were to find a lump by mistake. This is the size of a lump if you were to do monthly self-breast exams. This is the size of a lump that an annual mammogram can find. And this is the size of a lump that that a mammogram will find, and that a yearly mammogram will find. Now, there are they're not brand new, but there are other testings that will find small, even smaller than this. So I want to explore those functional tests as well, because they are more innovative than when this little card was even made. This is a gentle reminder, though, that, hey, do your self-exams, because you don't want to find a lump this big. Trust me, if it's palpable to your fingers, then it's already a large size, all right? Now, just because you have a lump doesn't mean it's cancer. I want to be clear about that. As women, and even men, especially if you are lifting weights, we have cystic, fibrous cystic masses that we can have. They are almost always cancer-free. They are not, they're benign. And so when I am approached by clients or patients that are filled with fear at that time, and they need to go for further testing, I always say, don't borrow trouble. Wait for the results. Or let's shift something. Because when you sit and stress about what's next, you are putting that negative thought process, that negative mindset, and that stress and that worry into that spot. And I am telling you, your mind plays a huge role in how your body responds to that negative energy. So, I am saying, do not let that fear camp out in that area. Do not borrow trouble before there's something there. Things can always be shifted, but don't sit in that. Do not sit in that. Claim Christ before you claim the negativity. I'll just jump off my soapbox for a second there, all right? Okay, so the traditional testing options, which most of you have already heard about, we'll just go over some pros and cons and what those tests are. So mammogram is one of them. This is the standard of care. It uses low-dose x-rays to detect abnormal tissue density, and it's most commonly known This is what people go in yearly for. Those of us that have had cancer have had several of them done. The pros is that it's highly available and it can detect the calcifications and the deep tissue changes. The cons is there is still radiation exposure. You have the compression, and sometimes false positives can cause the stress, the anxiety, and the fear to creep in. So my functional tip would be to always request your image copies and your reports, or ask if there is a different alternative to a mammogram. The testing, and sorry for any inconvenience, but I'm hoping that we left off right around the ultrasounds. So that's where I'm going to pick up. Is, you know what, I'm going to just go back up to the testing. We're having some technical difficulty today. So I'm just going to go right back up to the mammograms and start at the top of the testing. All right, so if you're just jumping in, we're going to go up to mammograms. And this is, like I said, the standard of care. It uses low-dose x-rays to detect abnormal tissue density. The pros here is that it's highly available. It's widely known. It can detect calcifications and deep tissue changes when it's quite small. And this has been around for quite some time. The cons is the radiation exposure, the compression, and sometimes false positives that can cause that anxiety and that fear to creep in. The functional tip here would always be to request your copies and reports. Ask if there is alternative to mammogram, especially if you don't have good insurance anyway and you're paying out of pocket. Definitely request an alternative to a mammogram. There are other tests out there that are comparable. Now, another well-known test is the ultrasound. A lot of times, if you do have a positive finding on an ultrasound, they'll back this up, on a mammogram, they'll back this up with an ultrasound. This is often used if you have dense breast tissue. The pros with an ultrasound is there's no radiation. It's much more comfortable. It's very helpful for those fibrocystic tissues in that breast tissue. The cons with ultrasounds is that it is operator dependent for the accuracy, and it can miss some early calcifications. But overall, it's a very good alternative. But like they said, it can miss some of the early calcifications. Breast imaging through an MRI uses magnetic, so it's very sensitive. It's great for high-risk women or those with implants even. That's the pro for magnetic imaging. The con to an MRI is that it's very expensive. It often requires a contrast dye, and it's not usually covered for routine screening. The other pro for it is there is no compressing of the breast tissue, which that's also a nice pro. But again, it's extremely expensive and not usually covered unless you have dense tissue and a history of cancer in your family already. Now, some alternatives, some functional and alternative testing options that are very good, but not necessarily covered in the allopathic medicine avenue. But something to think about and put in your toolkit is thermography. Thermography measures heat and blood flow changes in your breast tissue. The pros is there's no radiation. It can detect inflammatory changes early, and it's pain-free. The cons is that it's not a diagnostic replacement. It's best used as a complementary tool alongside traditional imaging. So think of it as a way to monitor the physiological changes before there's actual structural changes occurring. So monitoring through thermography is a great way to get your baselines situated, and if there's any changes in your thermoscan, then you can go for like a mammogram or an MRI or an ultrasound, that type of thing. Follow up then after you've had a thermal imaging. There's also saliva and hormone testing. That evaluates your estrogen, your progesterone, and other hormones influencing the breast health. The pros to this, it identifies imbalances early that may contribute to tissue changes, but the cons is it doesn't diagnose cancer, but it helps in prevention strategies. Another tool is functional blood work analysis. This is, of course, one of my favorite tools. We look at patterns, not just in range, but those that are also out of range. Clues like liver congestion, inflammation, or immune shifts can appear long before the disease. So the pros to this is fairly non-invasive, other than you have to get your blood drawn, and it gives insight into your whole body terrain. The cons is it does require someone trained in functional interpretation, not just traditional lab work. Now, how do you sort through all of the noise of all of this? Because let's be honest, all of the information overload is real. I talk to patients every week that are like, well, I know I have this, this, and this. And so when you go on Dr. Google, and I hear it all the time, and one of the first things I say is stop doing that because it is too much information. And just the regular person does not know what is fact or fiction on Dr. Google. So the one symptom, and you can convince yourself you're dying in 5 minutes on Google. So we have to filter through that noise. And here's how to discern the wisdom. The first thing I always, like I just said before, is pause before you panic. Don't borrow the trouble. Don't make decisions from a point of fear. The first place we should be going is prayer. Pray first, pray always. Ask for peace in the panic so that you can release it. And remember that fear drives confusion. Peace brings clarity. Peace doesn't, the state of being in peace doesn't mean you don't have other feelings. It just means you have this overall sense of, I am going to get through this in the best way that God will carry me through it, no matter the outcome. It's a state of being. It's a mind shift change. And I can say this with confidence because I had to do this. So I know that what I am telling you is achievable. You might have to do it minute to minute. It's not a day to day. It might be a minute to minute type of prayer. But I know you can do it. Gather gather information. Be thankful for the information. Don't be resentful of it. People are trying to help. But as you're gathering it, write down the questions from the information that you are gathering, and then research from trusted medical and functional sources, not just from social media hearsay, or just from somebody that, really hasn't experienced what you've gone through, or doesn't have the information, all of the information, right? And then seek counsel. Don't become an island. When you live in isolation with the journey that you're going through, it compacts the negative mindset shift. The negative feelings and the overwhelm creeps in, and the enemy uses that to bind you. And I'm telling you, you don't want to be in that space, because the enemy wants to keep you. He wants to keep you bound and broken. And I'm telling you, you can be freed, and you can be the warrior that God wants you to be. There is healing on this side of heaven, but sometimes healing is also in our homegoing. But our mindset in how we journey through this with Christ makes a huge difference. So where there is no guidance and no counsel and no community, a people falls. But in abundance of counselors, there's safety. So ask your team of friends, family, care team, both traditional and holistic, but look for unity, not contradiction. And then ask value-based questions. Write them down. Don't try to remember, because about the time you think you're going to remember, you're going to forget. What are the risks and benefits of test or treatment? How does it align with my faith, values, and peace? Am I making this decision because I'm afraid, or because I'm being led to this decision? Is this the best decision for me at this time? Or am I making this decision because I am afraid? Do I have all of the information that I need to make the best informed decision now? Or am I making it out of fear? Remember that finding peace in the information is also data. Then your health journey is personal to you. I can tell you everything I did step by step, but at the end of the day, it was still just my journey. Your health journey is personal to you. You can be pro mammogram or pro thermography. You can choose functional blood work and traditional follow-up. This isn't just picking sides. It's about integrating all of the information and deciding which path is right for you. So this isn't about picking sides. It's about integrating the wisdom that works best for you. This is where I coin my phrase, holding space for grace, for yourself and for the others around you. Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to take our next step in peace, even if it doesn't look like everyone else's step. I had to give myself that same grace, because I many years now, I'm here, right? I chose all the traditional steps, but I also suffered for 15 years, and I still have some lingering side effects with my memory of lots of other testing, lots of other biopsies, lots of other side effects from the chemotherapy. And I look at some of my friends that did 100% natural healing, and I was envious. Why didn't I have that faith to walk that way? So I had to give myself some grace. I'm being very vulnerable with you here right now. Looking back, I did what I needed to do at the time I needed to do it. Would I make that same decision today, knowing what I know now? I don't think I would. However, moving forward, knowing I would make a different decision, but your journey is still your personal journey. So do not feel any sort of way. Hold space for grace for yourself and for those around you, or for others that are choosing different pathways in their journeys. It is so important that we build each other up no matter what journey they're on or what journey we've taken. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to take our next step in peace, even if it doesn't look like everyone else's. Maybe that means asking for a second opinion, or maybe you did that and you're still second guessing the second opinion. Then ask for a third opinion. Maybe it's starting a different lifestyle shift with herbs or nutraceuticals or a complete diet and lifestyle revamp. Maybe it's scheduling a test that you've been avoiding. Or maybe it's getting rid of a traditional healthcare system and going completely functional. Whatever it is, do it with faith, not with fear. Again, Joshua 1:8-9 reminds us, meditate on this book of law day and night. Then you will make your way prosperous and have good success. Be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. That means He's in the hospital room, the lab, the waiting in the car, the moment you open the email with your results. He's with you in the quiet nights. He's with you in the tearful news. He's with you in the outcries of anger, and He's with you in the rejoicing of success. He's with you always. So what does that mean right now? How can you support your body right now? One thing I started after I went through my journey is I started a morning routine. And I do have that linked in the comments that you can grab. So you could go ahead and grab that. It's a free document that you can get. But what can you do to support yourself right now? Detox pathways are going to be huge. You need to make sure they're all functioning. So stay hydrated. Keep your bowels moving daily. You need to sweat. Your skin is like a second liver. So you need to get it sweating and making sure that that's all functioning properly. And dry brushing or lymphatic movement like rebounding, just bouncing up and down gently. Walking is great for getting the lymphs to move. Even massage is great. You need to feed your cells. Colorful foods. We've talked about this, and I probably sound like a broken record if you've been following me. But colorful foods, eating the rainbow, reds, purples, greens, reduce inflammation. Cruciferous veggies like broccoli, kale, cabbage, they support your estrogen detox. Flax, chia, they support hormone balance. And then you can, of course, add your herbals in there as well. Watch for hidden toxins, avoiding the plastics and the parabens and the aluminums and deodorants. Switch to glass where you can, or stainless steel, and use as much natural body care as possible. And then emotionally detoxing. Learn to journal, prayer, be grateful. I do gratitude every morning before I even get up. I smile at myself and thank God every morning, and pray every morning and every night. I have quite the list. And then forgiveness. Forgiveness is not just for the person that you're forgiving, but it's for you to relieve and release the bitterness, anger, resentment, getting rid of what Christ has already carried to the cross for you. Release what weighs you down emotionally. Toxins are not just on the internal, the physical. They're also toxic to your spiritual and emotional and psychological. And then your faith, detoxing your faith. What are you listening to that you shouldn't be? What are you filling your day with that you shouldn't be? Who is feeding your faith? Who is fueling your fear? These are all small detox steps that we can take throughout our day, throughout our week. Here's the truth, you guys. You can do everything right and still face uncertainty, but you don't have to face it alone. And frankly, you're never alone. Faith over fear isn't a slogan. It's a posture of peace. It's standing firm, rooted in Christ. When the world is shouting panic, fear, Psalm 91:4, He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. Let that image rest in your heart. He's covering you. Not striving, not stressing, but resting under His wings of covering. So today, I want to bless you with courage, clarity, and compassion. May you learn to know your normal, to honor your body as the temple it was designed to be, to seek the answers you need without fear, and to hold space for grace with every decision. Because healing isn't about perfection, it's about partnership with yourself, with your Creator, and with your purpose. Take that next faithful step. Schedule your test, book a consult, adjust your nutrition, and simply pause and pray. And if you need someone to walk beside you, that's what Grace Anatomy, Functional Health and Nutrition is here for. You were never meant to do this alone. So, I'm Beth, and together we're choosing faith over fear, so that you can walk boldly, beautifully, and confidently in Jesus Christ, no matter what the report says. You're not just surviving this journey, you're conquering it in Christ. So, I'd love to have you join me. But next week, we're going to be talking nutrition. I'll see you and have a blessed week. Bye.